All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome everybody. So today is lesson 2.4, solving equations with a variable on each side. It's also the very first time we're going to kind of talk and walk you through some proofs, which are an introductory thing that you guys will be doing in geometry. It's only a short little lesson on it, but I want to make sure you guys get the grasp of it. Not only will we do solve equations on both sides, we're going to write problems, and then solve with variables on both sides as well from word problems. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, this is another longer lesson because I'm throwing a lot of material at you. It's 3 pages of notes. This is number 1. Let's go. All right, so on here, we have bell work. We want to talk about identity is one of the big things. You've solved multi-step sets you've been working on. Now we're going to solve equations using grouping symbols and things on both sides, which would be an X on each side. All right, first thing off the bat on the notes, I want you guys to choose one of the following properties. Okay, so it's very important that we start talking about these properties because this is what you're doing. Okay, so when you say, well, what am I actually doing? There's a name to it. So for example, when we do addition property of equality, we're adding something to both sides. We've been doing that for the last couple of lessons. Subtracting things from both sides. You've been doing that from both couple lessons. And remember, we had multiplication and division. Well, it's all the same philosophy and principle, just with, it's called property of equality, because what you do to one side, you have to equally do to the other side, all right? And then distributive property is something else we've already talked about. And then finally, there's one thing up there, it's called simplifying. That is how you would write a proof. So let's begin, and I'll kind of walk you through this first little process, because this will be on a test, the quiz and a test, most definitely. All right, so here's your first equation. It's given to you, okay? That's what it's called given. Then what you got to do is you got to figure out the little steps, including simplify first. So how did they go from here to here? Same equation, but what are they doing? Okay, they are multiplying 4. So this would be the multiplication. So this is, and I always spell multiplication wrong. Multiplication prop of EQ. Okay, property of equality. All right, so they're multiplying. And then they go from here to here. What are they doing? Okay, they are simplifying. And I think I forgot the app. No I. Dang it. Simplifying. Okay. Bad spelling. I understand that. That's why I don't teach English. All right. So next step. All right. They go. How would they go from here to this equation here? What are they adding, or what are they putting in to the equation? Well, if you drop it straight down, what are they doing? It looks like they put in a subtraction sign. So this would be subtraction property of equality. Now on your Alex homework, there's going to be drop-down boxes. There are going to be things you got to move in and out of. So please make sure you guys can do this. And then the last piece is actually solving it, or the final step, which is simplifying, right? All right, next one over here. Here's your given equation. What are they doing to the equation? Which would be, what would you do to it, right? What are they doing? Well, it looks like they're dividing. So this is going to be division. Division prop of equality. Then you're doing what? How do they go from here to here? Where they're just doing the math, or they're simplifying it. That Y is throwing, I and Y is throwing me off. And then, so they're simplifying it. Now what are they doing? Again, this is addition, and so down here they're doing subtraction. Okay, and then that would be prop, and then the last thing is, again, simplify. And that's it. Okay, that's what I want to make sure you guys understand. This is how the beginning stages of kind of proofs that are given. Okay, now in geometry they're much more difficult. You got to prove one thing to another to another. I want you to be able to identify each step as we're going through this. Okay, all right, so what I want you guys to do now is use the properties above, but answer these two. All right, simple things. Now this first one's got a little bit of a caveat that we didn't discuss, but from here, how did they go from here to here? They used distribution, okay? Distributive property, right? And then, you know, what's the difference between here and here? It looks like they're adding, so this would be addition. And then what do? This is simplify. And then the last one, you're done here, they're dividing. And then the last one is simplifying, right? So now there are properties associated with it. I'd probably want you to write the property out on your notes so you understand when you go to Alex and do this, you can accomplish this. And then, so how are you going from here to here? Well, it looks like you are subtracting. And then this would be simplifying. Okay, and then how did they go from here to here? What order of operation are you throwing in there? It is multiplication. And then the last one again is simplify. Okay, simple enough, right? Make sure you guys understand the process of how you would have to prove something, or why are you going from here to here? What reason are you giving? It's a property, there's a name to it. Please make sure you guys can do it. All right, last little thing on these notes is getting with the variables. Now, there are 4 different kind of versions on here that I threw out. Actually, this one's separate, and then you have grouping, and then you have a coup de grace at the end, okay? It's a very different dichotomy, but I want to make sure you guys can do all the different variations of this, okay? So simple one here. Now, we've been doing multi-step, so I'm going to start doing these things in what I like to refer to as one shot, okay? Which is, I'm going to move variables first, so I know which way should I go. I'm going to move the variable always to the left because it's simpler on my brain, or I want to make sure the variable is not negative. That's the key term here, is make sure the variable is not negative. So, for example, this one here, if I go 14 to 18, if I subtract 18 from both sides, I'd end up with a negative 4x. I don't want that. So let's go negative 14x here, negative 14x there. Now, if I'm moving the variable over here, that means I got to move the number over there. Okay, so make sure you guys understand that why am I doing it is because let's do the math problem once I set it up like this, right? First column here, 23 minus 23 would be 0. Then that would be 18 minus 14 is 4x equals, and then you have your setup, right? Negative 21, I went and spent 21, I've spent 23. How much have you actually spent? You spent 44 bucks. And then these last ones cancel out, so there's your little setup, right? And then I would erase this, understanding that the zeros go away. There's my actual problem. Divide by 4, x is negative 11. Just like that, okay? Understand the setup and the process. By now you guys should. All right, do the distribution first. So that would be 5w minus 20. And then you have a negative 7w equals negative 16. Combine like terms. All right, so there's no moving a variable yet, but you have the same variable on the same side, so you add those together, right? Think of this as one equation here, and here's another one over there. This 16 is by itself, great, we're done. All right, this one over here, you gotta smash things together. 5 minus 7, so a 5 and a negative 7, you put them together, you have negative 2, w minus 20 equals negative 16. Now you solve and get everything away from the variable. So you would divide, oh, sorry, that's not divide. Screwed that up. That's a negative 20. So you would add 20 to both sides, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. So that would be negative 2w equals 20, and 16 would be a positive 4, right? Because you're adding and subtracting them. Now you divide. Negative 2, so w ends up being negative 2. All right, the other one over here, same thing. First, we're going to do the distribution to get rid of the brackets. So we have negative 7w minus 37 equals 4w minus 4. Now we're going to move the variables and the constants, or the integers. Okay, so move the numbers first. So we're going to go, now here's the same where I was talking about earlier. I don't want the variable to be negative, or the coefficient in the term to be negative. And so I don't want this coefficient to be negative. I want to get rid of the negativity. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides, right? So that way I know this is going to be a positive number. But if I'm moving the variable over here, then that means I got to move the constant to this side, right? So you got to move the number to the other side. So that's your setup, just like that. Okay, now you do your math. So that cancels each other out. Negative 37, you add 4. How much have you spent for the day? you spent 33 equals 7 and 4 is 11W divide, simple like that, right? Okay, the last one here is a bigger one, but it's okay. I want to make sure you guys understand that also it's not going to be a whole number, it's going to be a fraction. So let's begin. Negative and negative, right? So negative and a negative makes this a positive 20x minus 5 minus 3x equals, do the distribution, 5x minus 20 minus 1. Love it. There's a lot here. All right, focus on one side at a time. We're going to focus on the left-hand side. So let's combine like terms. 20x and negative 3, that is 17x minus 5 equals. Then focus on the other side, right? Combine like terms. 5x minus 20 minus 1. That's 20 and you spent 20, you spent one more. Means you spent 21. Now we're back to where we were over here, where we're going to do it in one shot, right? So once again, make sure I want this term to be positive when we're done. So I'm going to subtract 5 over here, because then that will still be a positive number. But if I'm subtracting 5 over here, that means I got to take this 5 and move it to the other side. Okay, hopefully you guys see the setup and understand why we're doing it. So that'd be 12x equals 21, and 5 is going to be 16, right? Negative 16. Then divide by 12. That's your answer, but you can simplify it down to negative 4/3. Okay, so your answer is negative 4/3. Hopefully you guys see the setup. I want to challenge you guys this year. Challenge all the freshmen as you guys are coming in, and everybody that's taking Algebra 1 to understand the concepts. That's it for this first video. What I'd want you to do is flip over to the second page, ladies and gentlemen. Get started on the homework before, or on the notes before you actually watch the next video.